Mike Ferrin, Sirius XM MLB Network Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, now singing the Mike Ferrin Open, it's Mike Stibbs.
Just make sure it sounds sexy, Stibbs.
Lord Almighty, how can you stand Arizona? Your fair skin must be burning down into your absent soul. Mike, 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 we can barely hear you. It sounds to me like you called us from inside a hole. But your phone calls lift me higher, like the ERA of Mark Pryor. Your hair looks like it's on fire. You're Mike Ferrin.
He is Mike Ferrin of Sirius XM MLB Network Radio, joining us live from his palatial estate somewhere in Arizona, where he's getting ready for D-backs baseball tonight at, I believe, 8 o'clock, right? 8
o'clock Central. Yeah.
I'm sad. I did catch the end of Sunday's game. I tried to catch a little bit of everybody's games or series over the weekend.
Wow.
And I think I missed one. But
was it the Marlins that you missed, and now you're missing them all the time?
Yeah. Now I'm missing them permanently. So
sad.
Probably a reason why I didn't watch the Marlins. I figured, they're not going to be long for this world anyway.
I mean, it was nice to have back the distraction for a while. It's too bad the real world decided to intervene in the last 48 hours, right?
Yeah. Well, the real world has postponed the Marlins games through Sunday. As a result, that means the Nationals are off this weekend. The Orioles and Yankees are flipping schedules around. So then now the Yankees are going to face the Orioles this week. The Marlins, as announced within the last half hour or so, according to Derek Jeter, they have moved to daily testing. Mm-hmm. So anything else that I'm missing here? And
Phillies, out of an abundance of caution, are gonna play before Friday, which is good because we know what the incubation period is, several days on this, and since they played the Marlins this weekend. So, and I want to say, I mean, we've been pretty critical of Major League Baseball when they've had missteps in this and some of the way that they've looked publicly, but I think that they're handling this the right way. I mean, this is the way that the epidemiologists kind of suggest that you handle this. I think they'd said that they would prefer to have the Phillies, separated from everybody else for 4 or 5 days just to make sure that they didn't show up with some positive tests. If the Phillies do show up with positive tests, and it's as a result of their exposure to the Marlins, I think that there's significantly bigger fish to fry. So I would say the next 48 hours, we're still holding our breath a little bit. The early returns have been good, at least in that they haven't had any positives. In fact, the only team that's had positive tests since last Friday is the Marlins. But it's just worth, keeping an eye on. So I think MLB is doing the best that it can. Putting a pause on the Marlins season certainly makes sense. I think taking the Phillies out of a commission for a couple of days in an abundance of caution for both them and the teams that they're playing makes total sense. And hopefully by the time we get to Friday, things start to, move in the right direction and we can start getting the Marlins back on the field next week. And they'll have to make up some games along the line. But I also think the league understands it's going to be difficult to get to 60 games for them. I think they probably had an understanding of that going in. And so, winning percentage is going to matter this season as well, kind of like it did in 1981.
So, Mike, what has the reaction been inside of baseball about how this unfolded? Because I know there was that story in the Inquirer from Philly about the mass text messages and all that. Did everything happen in the way it should have, or was there a mistake from the Miami side of things?
No, I don't think that. Well, I mean, at least in terms of how things played out, I don't know that there was a mistake on anybody's side. I mean, I think, the Marlins. I think baseball players and baseball field personnel look at anything that kind of gets in their way as an obstacle that they have to overcome, right? And so you're kind of wired that way. So why would positive COVID tests to teammates be any different than that? Obviously, this is a public health issue and something that they're not used to dealing with, and none of us really are used to dealing with. So I don't know that they necessarily made a misstep there. We had Joe Girardi on this morning, the Phillies manager, and he said, if this happened again, he said, I don't think we would play the game. He doesn't think that his team would take the field for the game, which I think is certainly understandable. understandable. And I think that it certainly raised more awareness in that from teams. And maybe if we have it happen again, I don't know that a team that had an outbreak like this would take the field. I think it's probably smart that they don't. But I don't want to say that the Marlins players or anybody did anything wrong in that. And that probably goes to, how this spread too. I mean, there's any number of ways that it could have gotten into the clubhouse from, whether it was somebody outside the organization or somebody's family member or whatnot. They had a couple of instances where they were playing an exhibition game on Wednesday last week in Atlanta, and it was pouring. And so they all had to kind of climb into the dugout together, and they weren't socially distant. So if one person had it, you could see where it goes from there. And then they had to sit on the tarmac for a while, it sounds like, before they got on their charter flight to Philadelphia. And so there's a lot of different ways that it could have gone wrong. And we don't know what they were doing in terms of following the protocol behind the scenes, wearing masks and staying socially distanced in the clubhouse as well, which is something that's, I think, really important. So, and I think that this has helped to drive that home for teams as well. So, I think that all of those things are probably factors in it. I have a very difficult time blaming somebody for getting sick, though, in something like this, because it's just like, you just don't know. You don't know. We can try and be as safe as possible. And, if you let your guard down for 10 seconds, which we're all, want to do, it could be the wrong 10 seconds.
But was it a mistake to essentially let the players decide to continue to play the series on Sunday, which then, of course, affected Philadelphia?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there was any protocol in there to prevent that from happening, right? They had taken the players that had tested positive out of circulation. And certainly, I think if the Marlins had said, hey, listen, we probably shouldn't have played that, then that would have been the right decision too. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's the wrong decision. Probably wasn't the most prudent decision, but I also think hindsight is 20/20 on that too, right? I mean, it looks a lot different in the time. In that moment, maybe you're wondering, geez, why are they playing this game? But everybody else is trying to soldier on and to play. And again, that's kind of the nature of baseball players. So I think, again, if this happens in the future, I think we'll probably see a more significant reaction from teams in it. And it's all a learning experience, right? We've never been through this before. All the testing stuff at the beginning, like we talked about that. Nobody had ever set that up before. Of course, there were going to be hiccups with it. This is one of those cases. Now teams, going on the road, that's a first issue. Teams coming home from the road, that's another first. Once we start getting through those, the more information we get, the better prepared I think we are to be able to deal with the challenges that come.
So, Mike, looking at the actual baseball on the field, I went through last night and I added up. I looked at all the totals for the first, 4 or 5 days of the season. I added them all up. The overs are 26, 28, and 1. So, first of all, Vegas, phenomenal as always. But we've had a lot of conversations with you over the last few weeks about expecting good pitching or good hitting. Has it surprised you that there has seemed to be a balance? Because, I go from game to game and you'll have ones that are 3-2 and then others that are 14-1. Is this surprising you at all how they have gone so far?
No, not really. I mean, I think in the end, the numbers look pretty similar to the way that they did, just from a rate standpoint of what they did a year ago. I wasn't going to go through on the betting lines because I'm not a degenerate like you are, but we went through this exercise, I think, yesterday, and just from a standpoint of looking at the season a year ago through 4 games, the numbers were pretty on point in terms of what they were from a strikeout rate, batting average, on base percentage, slugging percentage, walk rate, all of those things were pretty much in line. And I think that that's still the case. Just pulled it up while we were talking here, and it looks a lot like it did last year at this point. Slugging percentage just a little bit over 400. We're just starting to get one turn through a rotation now. So, I think it just kind of evens out in that regard. And I think it's I don't think in the end it should be all that surprising. I think we're probably trying to parse too much information. I'm certainly guilty of that too, out of the fact that we're starting the season in July versus what we would start in March. But it does seem pretty similar, at least statistically, to where it has been.
All right, so we buried the lead long enough. The actual big story in baseball.
I'm going to take a break, guys. We'll see you in 10 minutes.
The Chicago Cubs bullpen sucks. Last night, wow. I actually did. I was going back through in my mind how it played out, and the fact that they threw 46 pitches in the 9th inning and had 8 swings. The Reds swung the bat 8 times. No hits, 1 ball left the infield, and that was the last out of the game. what we knew that Craig Kimbrell struggled last year. He had struggled at the end of his Boston run, but it appears as if this is now carried into yet another year. What have you been hearing around Major League Baseball regarding Kimbrell and whether or not anything resembling the old Craig Kimbrell is still there somewhere?
Well, I'll give you one further. My brother, who, my youngest brother is a huge Cub fan, texted me this morning. He said in the last 2 innings of the game, the bullpen allowed 8 base runners against only 4 pitches put in play, of which only 2 were hits. And yet they gave up, 5 runs, right, to make it a hell of a ball game. I think there has to be concern. I mean, his velocity's still there. I mean, it's maybe not a peak Kimbrell. I mean, it's not like he's throwing 99 anymore, but he was 96 consistently. I mean, I was watching the game
97.
Yeah, I mean, he just didn't have very good fastball command, which a lot of guys don't have. I mean, I feel like that's been the conversation. In fact, I was telling you guys before we came on, I was on I'm later today because I was on the Diamondbacks pitching coach press conference. And what was his complaint? Well, I mean, they walked 27 guys in their 4-game set against the Padres, right? And what was the issue? Well, they didn't command the fastball very well, right? They weren't putting it where they wanted to. And so I think that's something you see early in the season. I think what's going to be really interesting to watch is, how Kimbrell bounces back when he's available next, which I would assume would be probably tomorrow because he threw so many pitches, and whether or not he's able to get that ironed out just a little bit because the stuff is still good enough. And if it looks like he hasn't quite turned the corner in the next outing with only 60 games on the schedule, how quickly does David Ross make a decision? Because every game matters more. Now the expanded playoffs helps that some. It does give you a little bit more cushion. You're really just playing for seeding at this point, as opposed to playing for like just a handful of playoff spots. But you have to still be mindful of that. I think if you're the Cubs organization and if you're David Ross, as to what you want to do in the 9th inning. So yeah, it's pretty close to go time for Kimbrell, and it's a bummer to watch because the guy was a Hall of Fame caliber closer before the last 2 seasons.
2 things real quick, Mike. First of all, Greg and Lincoln says Mike Ferrin was nearly giggling watching John work up to asking his bullpen question. Ha ha. But
you should have seen me last night.
You should have seen him at 2:00 earlier today.
I would have been giggling watching you last night too. Yeah, I guarantee it.
Once again, another dramatic reading of John and Kevin Kugler's text messages back and forth would be probably good radio.
Yeah, and we'd probably get you fired. The other thing I wanted to ask you though, Mike, is there was a lot of criticism, including from the guy that we were just making fun of, about the expanded playoff. Does what happened with the Marlins maybe lend credence to that being a good idea? That they're, because teams are probably going to miss games, that we're going to have to do a lot of this stuff on winning percentage?
I haven't thought of it necessarily from that angle. I mean, I just think from the truncated season standpoint, it probably is more fair to what the standards of baseball are, and that one of the beauties of it is that it's such a long season that you can overcome slow starts like what the Nationals did. This gives you a better chance to be able to do that, and creates a more fair playoff. Like, I'm not a big fan of this idea going forward, but I like it for this year because I think it's more fair when you're only playing 60 games when you're used to playing almost 3 times as many. So, I think when you factor in that we're going to have some teams that might end up with 55 games or 57 games or something like that. Yeah, maybe that helps to even it out a little bit. It would be a shame, if somebody got left out all of a sudden because one team played 3 fewer games and moved in. But, oh, well, I mean, we always need something to complain about, right? So it's like somebody's always going to get snubbed. The bubble team's always going to get snubbed. And it's never the number 1 seed that gets snubbed. It's always the number 8, right? So or the number 16 seed in the NCAA. So it's a team that probably not. That's probably not right. It's probably more like an 11 or 12 seed gets snubbed. Yeah. Whatever it is, it's not not somebody who you were like, oh, that's a lead pipe lock for the tournament. So I think that's that probably adds a little bit to the discussion.
Kluber is out 4 weeks. Verlander at least 2. Were these the types of injuries that folks were worried about with the broken up spring training and this short summer run up?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Dusty Baker said as much yesterday, talking about Verlander, and then they have a number of guys that are kind of dinged up, Ryan Presley and Chris Davinsky out of their bullpen. And so, yeah, I think that there's a number of guys that are certainly, it's certainly a concern for. So, I think I don't know that would have been, what we don't know is would that have been any different at the end of spring training? Like the Cardinals put Miles Michaelis on the injured list today with a forearm strain. He was dealing with that in spring training 1. So, did this exacerbate it? Did it, he got more rest? Did it help? Would he have gone back on the injured list anyway? Who can say? We don't really know. So I think all of those things are, they're questions, and they certainly lead to good takes and columns and talk show discussion. But I don't know if it is actually any different than what you would have over the regular season. But it's easy to point at, hey, listen, we got to ramp up. These guys had to ramp up quickly. Now they're probably being pushed past their comfort zone, or maybe they're trying to do too much. Is it different here than it was during the regular season than would have been during, a standard spring training, because you knew exactly how to plot guys out? Yeah, probably. And it may lead to a few more injuries as a result.
Well, so far, I mean, we're 4 days, 5. This is day 5 into the new season. Technically 6 because they started on Thursday. The 2 new rules that everyone was all worried about, the extra innings rule, I think so far has led to some interesting moments, especially on opening night Friday. You get a walk-off grand slam, Braves and Mets. I think, didn't the Diamondbacks go extra innings on Sunday?
They did not. They came close, but
they came close.
I mean, there was an 11-inning game last night. I mean, the thing that was with that Friday night game, the thing that was incredible wasn't the walk-off grand slam. It was the defensive play Matt Olson made to start the 10th inning, where he, the first baseman throws out the runner, one of the fastest guys in the league, going to third. I mean, that to me was really what was very interesting about it. And I mean, I'm with you. I think the extra inning thing, like I was going to be open-minded on it, and so far I don't hate it. I mean, is that damning with faint praise?
Yeah, well, we've seen different philosophies with it. I was watching the Royals Indians and Matheny playing Mr. National League. They bunted for into scoring position, and then eventually got the winning run. Others have decided to tackle it in a different way, and so there is an element of strategy that maybe we lost without the DH, with the pitchers not hitting, but we've gained back now with this 10th inning strategy. Because then, if I recall, Alex Gordon made the last out for Kansas City in the 9th, and he should have been the runner at second, but then they ran for Alex Gordon to then set up what was eventually the winning run. So you get a level of strategy that at least is fascinating to watch. Yeah,
it's manufactured a little bit, but I mean, I think, and Mike Matheny talked about it. They were at the bottom of their order, so that might be the time that you play for one and then hope you can hold off the bottom. But like yesterday, I don't know if you were probably too busy angrily texting Kevin back and forth about the bullpen. But in the 10th inning, the Pirates held the Brewers off the board. They had a man at second, nobody out, and you got Gerard Dyson at the plate, and you're like, okay, bunt, sack, fly, let's go home with the win, right? Dyson couldn't get the bunt down. And so like all of a sudden it's like, and the next guy hits a rocket to the right side that easily would have gotten through a draw in an infield, and like they end up losing the game. So yeah, I mean, there is that strategic element to it, but for those of you who were concerned maybe about bunt to win, I don't think that that's going to be the case very often. And also bunting is still really hard when everybody's throwing 95 and it goes like that.
Yeah,
I know this is radio, so you can see exactly what I mean by like.
Well, but some people are watching, so it's going sideways. Or if it's Craig Kimbrell and it's in a different area code,
right? Well, you just take then.
But here's the strategy in the 10th inning against Kimbrell. Just
wait them out.
Take. All right, Mike. Well, enjoy the game tonight, and
thank you.
And let's just enjoy baseball while we can.
Yes, I think that's a good way to say it. Let us enjoy every day that we have baseball, and hopefully we will have it for 3 more months. Knock on wood.
I thought you were going to say 3 more days.
Listen, I'll take. We are all day to day in this situation, Josh. We are all day to day.
For the weekend, it was fun. Friday night after Kyle Hendricks pitched his gem, I went for my walk, turned on the White Sox game, listened to that.
Put it on the board.
Listen to the A's on Sunday. It was just nice to go for my walks and have baseball wafting through
Mike,
my
honestly,
ears.
man,
It was wonderful.
You know, the thing that I realized in the last 4.5 months is I miss sports sometimes is just background. You know, like I can't wait to have random NBA games that I don't care about just so I can have something on to make a little noise. Oh, no, you muted yourself. Is he gone? Did you mute yourself? Oh, no. Wow, it's like his phone.
I didn't mute him.
No, yeah, he's not muted. Oh, no.
He better get it fixed. He's got a pregame. He's got a pregame.
Oh, no.
No, it is muted. Hold on.
No, Oh, no, I think something's wrong with his microphone.
No, there it is.
Have you got me?
Hey, there you are.
I was going to say I don't think that it's that you missed sports all that much. It's that you missed gambling on sports.
Well, dude, I missed that. I bet on baseball. I haven't won any baseball bets yet. I'm like 0-5. This sucks.
What's your 10-star play of the day there?
Nothing. I'm not betting any baseball tonight. I'm waiting for the NBA on Thursday. I'll bet on.
Good.
Oh, by the way,
what
NBA.
were some of the bets you lost? I'm curious.
Well, okay. So I don't remember what I had in the Nationals-Yankees game. That got removed off the board. I had the over in the Dodgers-Giants game. That ended up getting a push, thank God, because of all those runs in, the 7th or the 8th inning. I had an underdog to win outright the other day that lost. I'm struggling, Mike. But you know what? I'm happy to gamble again. It's just nice to be able to put, a few bucks on games.
Betting the over with the Giants is probably not a good idea because they cannot score runs.
No. Yeah, well, thank God for the Dodgers. Thank God for the Dodgers.
I've never said that.
Exactly. Division rival.
Yeah.
Okay, betting, whatever. See you later.
We'll talk to you next week. There he is, Mike Ferrin of Sirius XM MLB Network Radio.
When we return, we got a sports flash that's
Really?
NBA related, and it's good. It's actual good news. I mean, I even think you might enjoy this news.
Also, Cleveland leads the Sox 4-2 in the 6th. 4-2 in the 6th. That's the first of a doubleheader because remember they got rained out yesterday. All right, we'll be back, and we'll say goodbye to our friends on YouTube. But for the rest of you, we're still there on the radio. And remember, even if you're watching on YouTube,
people forget that
you're always listening to the radio to 1620 The Zone.